Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Magic Lesson number 58 Magical Duty. First, thank you to everyone who's messaged me with insight, gratitude, questions, voiced interest in the channel, especially over the last week. I know I didn't make a video last week, I received a lot of direct messages about that. Voiced interest in the Instagram account, left reviews in the online shop. Please know that I read each and every comment, every message, every email I receive. There are enough of them at this point that I can't possibly respond to every single comment or message, but I do read them. I appreciate them all so much. And whenever I'm able, I do respond privately and personally to those questions or inquiries that I haven't in some way covered in lessons previously on this little podcast. And as some of you know, sometimes I'll make a whole lesson in response to a question or message that someone sent while keeping the specifics anonymous, because it'll be such a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful intuitive ask or email or direct message that my inner voice prompts me with the response of there must be others who would also benefit from this same topic being discussed, addressed, explained. I'm saying all of this simply because I want everyone who sent such generous words of kindness, of thanks, or expressions of attention and energetic offering to know that I read and return that energy, right? I feel it, I read it, I feel it. All of the feels every single time. Even if I can't always respond to each individual note of love, truth, or shared experience personally. I read what you write, fellow truth seekers, and I thank you for it. There actually is a method. I know it seems chaotic, maybe like madness, but there is a format, although loose, granted, to the way in which I rolled these little magical podcast lesson type things out. So if at all possible, if you are someone who's asked a question I haven't replied to directly, please consider listening to all the videos in order, because it's possible the information has already been addressed, or you can join in patient balance with me until the lessons reach the point where your question, if it's a very experienced question, will be answered in due time and proper course. I get some emails requesting lessons or question answers that neophytes who have only made it to, say, lesson 58 right now, today, because I've just made it, right? They just aren't informed or prepared enough for the answers or for that sort of a lesson yet. So you'll have to wait for me to make the appropriate video when it's publicly appropriate for everyone who's following along. Or even more usually, give me a week or two to get to your DM or email in the list of first come, first served, so I can respond to you appropriately in a private setting as according your skill, experience, degree, grade in the great craft, without necessarily putting other people publicly in jeopardy of hearing things that they're simply not prepared to hear yet. And always bear in mind, I'm not, nor should I ever be, your only source for answers. I say this because I've gotten some chain emails, some chain messages from people, especially last week when I missed making one magic lesson video. Where did you go? Did you stop making videos? If nothing else, I shouldn't be your only go-to. More than anything, you should consider meditating on your question and listening for your own intuitive, internal voice in response. You are and will always be your strongest guide. And then also, if you happen to be one of the 3 individuals last week who inquired about necromancy, asking for information, grimoires, research materials, Solomonic key rituals, if I know them, if I'll give them out. Yes, I know them. No, I won't give them out, right? Please understand that as an Enochian Hermetic occultist personally, I am oath sworn to never actively engage in necromancy in any form, in it, or to teach it to others who might then engage in it. So I won't ever be answering those questions in public or private. Violating the sacred vows of my order carries consequences I have absolutely no interest in experiencing. And even more important, I intentionally, rationally have no interest in growing the darkness of ignorance on this plane in its many forms, as I'm oath sworn to actively pursue doing the opposite of that tasking. And trust me, the pursuit of necromancy is ignorant. If you study any genuinely dedicated form of magic, coming into a quick comprehension of the fact that necromancy isn't what you should be doing, that happens pretty darn quick. Death is a part of life, and things are meant to cycle and balance. There is light and beauty in that, right? Playing with empty shells is a droll business. It doesn't mean it isn't possible. It just isn't useful or sensical. It's really boring, right? More than just being gross, it's just boring. It's dull. It's pointless. It's a misuse of time and energetic effort. So you'll be hard pressed to find any magic practitioner with understanding, of Klipa, of the Tree of Life, of the common sense of the Magi, who's interested or willing to engage in it or in the pursuit of it or the constant study of it. Like playing with the dead shed skin of a snake, right? Rather than engaging with the real live entity. And why would you want to? What are you doing? It's a dull pastime at best. And it's masochistically filthy and spiritually, energetically asinine at worst. Now that that's been addressed, on to the little lesson for today. Magical duty, or perhaps I should maybe have called it magical sourcing, right? What's your magical duty to yourself? Because that is your first duty in magic. It's always to yourself. I get questions a lot. Does magic work? That's why I'm bringing this up. Yes, magic works. Why hasn't it worked for me yet? Or why hasn't it worked for me in this way? Or can I use it to do this thing, accomplish that thing, heal this thing over here? Yes, you can do it and you can use it and it does function and it does work. And why hasn't it worked for you yet? Probably because you haven't been doing your rituals every day. It's as simple as that. I know that sounds boring. What's boring is often true. Magic requires sacrifice, labor, dedication. 9 times out of 10, no matter what the complaint as far as energetic sourcing, when you ask someone if they've been dedicated and diligent in their magical practices, they haven't. Right? They haven't given magic their time, and so it isn't giving them the time of day either. That's just how it works. And that's why they're complaining in the first place. Why doesn't my magic work? Because you're not doing magic, right? You're not doing your ceremony every day. The force isn't strong with them because they aren't working to make it strong, right? If you want to build muscle, you lift weights, right? That's the same thing with magic. It's how magic operates. So if whatever you're trying to do isn't working magically, answer this first. This is your first magical duty. Are you doing your ritual practices on the daily? If the answer is no, you have your answer as to cause and effect. The most important answer that you need. That's where you need to start troubleshooting. Magic can and will heal the body and mind despite itself. Grant unto you anything requested, right? Anything you can make manifest. Hermetic magics, as you progress, will have you coming so in tune with your vessel as needed that before you know it, things like, I don't know, nicotine, liquor, caffeine, sugar addictions, those things will forcefully abandon you if you do your ritual daily practice. It just happens. It does. In fact, magic can be used quite quickly and directly to simply dissolve any one of those chemical seeming dependencies, even in a first year neophyte, before any real training or work is done on their part. Magic can be used for that. It's one of the most common ritual and sigil work requests received in my order. And it does work every single time when it's done correctly. When the resolve of the individual can be reached, tapped into, intentionally directed. And a huge part of applying magic correctly, intentionally directing it, is in its constant repetition with you, the practitioner, right? It's a dance, it's a romance. You and your magic, you have to be working together. That's the nature of the thing. We're mammals. Our minds love patterns and pattern recognition. And the more focus we give to a willfully intended pattern or habit or goal or subject, the more energy it builds unto itself. That's logical, that's common sense, that's rational, right? That's nothing spiritual or woo-ha, right? There's nothing even frighteningly engineered or scientific about that statement. Where you put your focus is where your energies will be. So if that intention, that focus, that will made manifest isn't set in the first place, right? If it isn't repeated, then it can't come into fruition. Ritual, ceremony, magical practice, repetition is the means by which the intention is first set and then projected willfully. If you don't put pencil to paper, you're not going to create a drawing. So if you don't do your magical practices, you cannot create and use magic. I can think of no simpler analogy than that. And for everyone out there that thinks they don't do rituals constantly and consistently all the time, you do. You do them in a myriad of other ways. For everyone who thinks that the rituals they know they do have no effect, they do, you're just wrong, right? I remind you, brushing your teeth minty fresh every morning, that is a hygienic ritual. If you skip a day, your teeth get icky, your breath gets bad. Skip a lot of days and maybe you'll lose your teeth, right? It's going to have a fallout effect of worse and worse health consequences. Do and maintain your daily ritual of brushing your teeth, and your teeth are going to stay shiny and fresh. Common sense, pattern, intention, consequence, energy building unto itself, action, habit, effect. We are all engaging in ritual constantly, all the time. It's everywhere around us, within us, and working, engaging with us. Magic is just how we can decide to do it consciously as well. To take hold of that power for ourselves and have it serve us as we decide. Occultism 101. Magic supports action. It supports and enforces the choices we make and the behaviors we take. Magical ritual reinforces our willing actions. If our willed intention and the actions we take mindfully are to say, heal from an injury or an ailment of some kind, then doing magic, doing rituals will support and empower that active intention. Just as the action you take in, say, taking medicine or putting a splint onto a broken bone, right, supports and reinforces the magic and its ability to do its thing, right? So it's a coexistence, it's working together. That's how all of this works. Action supports magic, magic supports action. Now, lately, a lot of newer occultists have been bringing up that being stuck at home, right? There's a lot of shelter in place orders. There's a lot of people that aren't going to their regular jobs. So maybe your roommates are always around now, or your kids are out of school all the time now. So that being stuck at home around other people with no private space to work in their practices. I mean, I heard a story the other day of 25 people had to give up their entire temple because they actually can no longer, the overhead on the rent of the temple is connected to a business. The temple itself is gone, right? It's tragic, at least for the moment, seemingly. But like every other obstacle, lesson, and experience, there's no real tragedy here. There's something to be learned, and that's how we should approach these things. So again, everyone that is coming forward to me with questions or complaints around the idea of having no private space to do their rituals, their practices at the moment, given the environment around us. Or the inability to meditate because it's not quiet enough, everyone's at home now. Or middle pillar, right? They've stalled out in their training, they can't do their middle pillar or their ongoing acquisition of adepthood. Do you know why? That sounds like an excuse. Because that's your higher self right there. That's your intuition. That's your inner voice nudging you. It sounds like an excuse because it is one. Excuses love to get in the way and interfere with magic. Given any opportunity, they will. I'm not saying that you're being stuck without a private sacred space to work in isn't real. It is real. It's very real. And I'm not saying that having a private space for sacred energetic workings isn't massively, incredibly useful. It is. Of course it is. Any occultist with a temple can attest to that. Anyone who works with co-creators to rage energy can attest to that. But what I'm saying is that every one of you who is using the lack of space or privacy as an excuse for why you can't do your magical practices seems to have conveniently forgotten their internal selfdom, right? Where with only a few minutes here and there, at the very least, during your day, you can close your eyes, take some space for yourself, and walk through your temple mentally. Do your ceremony in visualization. Achieve and balance your middle pillar or LBRP ritual entirely, internally, mentally. Visualize yourself doing the steps, chanting the God names, bathing your altar in sacred oils, blending your herbs, casting your sigils or spells. You can do that anywhere, anytime, inside your mind. And with practice, it can be just as powerful as the non-astral, non-earthral, non-mental, physical / reality practice you would otherwise be doing if you had the privacy and or space in physical reality. Doing rituals mentally is something all adepts learn to do on purpose eventually, usually by the third or fourth threshold, depending on their background, of which mystery school they're working with or from, formally or informally. There are mental rituals that are done every night before going to sleep, for instance. You do need to learn at some point how to cast, seal, and charge sigils when you don't have access to paper or pen. I mean, if you're in an emergency scenario, you might not have any tools at your disposal. So even when you aren't an adept yet, right? Even if you can't do that fully powerfully yet, beginning to do these things mentally, practicing walking through a ritual totally in your mind, visualizing it, imagining it, taking time and space to just meditate alone, even for 2 or 3 minutes, because your temple is gone or your living room is crowded. That is certainly better than nothing when it comes to keeping yourself minty fresh in your magics, right? So step outside for a minute or two, right? Go out in your backyard if you have one, on your deck, I don't know. Mentally walk through an LBRP. Then head back into your noisy, overcrowded kitchen, Go to the bathroom And take a few minutes while you're in the shower, without your pet there, without your significant other, without your children screaming inside the room, right? And take that moment to be present, to visualize while you're standing up. Maybe you're showering, I don't know. Maybe you're just standing there quietly. And visualize laying down in your perfectly private temple space, right? And working through a full middle pillar ceremony for balance. Depolarize that way. You might not have time to go lie down in a temple or in your sacred outdoor area, but you can do it in your bathroom for 3 minutes. Some of an adept's best rituals aren't even carried out on this plane. They can't be. You will learn that eventually. The structures and tools involved do not exist here. Regardless, purely imagined ritual might not be as convenient or impactful as the real thing, especially in the first 5 or so years of magical workings that you're doing. No, it isn't, it won't be. At least maybe not at first. But it's way, way better than doing no practice at all and allowing for excuses to run your life and your magical powers. And it is the practice which allows for your magic to work. So you need to be doing something. Even if it feels like next to nothing, doing something is better than nothing. No energetic sourcing, and there's no power for the craft. It's as simple as that. Without depolarizing, balancing, cleansing, and empowering yourself, you can't do magic. And you certainly can't do it well. So what's the first duty to the craft, to magic, to yourself? Do your practice. You're worthy of it. Whatever your practice may be. Because if you aren't doing the work, you can't rationally expect any return. And if you're thinking that you should be doing the work and aren't, that is your intuition nudging you in the right direction, being your guide, reminding you of your magical duties. Until next time.